There's something about visiting and exploring the Mississippi River that inspires. The culture and history of a place is experienced through its artistry and craftsmanship, allowing you a glimpse of a small river town or the inner workings of a metropolis along the river. River Travel Media is exploring people who call the Mississippi River home. Come for a visit and find out more at rivertravelmagazine.com. In this episode, we're talking with Joe Katchever from La Crosse's own Pearl Street Brewery. 20 years in business. So, Joe, did you picture the success of Pearl Street Brewery 20 years ago?
I really had no idea what was going to happen with Pearl Street Brewery. It was kind of going through my life and brewing beer and having a good time, and not really thinking about the next year or the year after. Just rolling along.
Craft beers kind of jumped ahead of domestic beers nowadays, if you know what I'm saying. Everybody kind of wants to have the next best flavor. They want to try the next new thing, and Pearl Street's been doing that for the last 20 years. It's liquid art. Wouldn't you agree?
That's what I look at craft beer as. I mean, this is the intersection between art and science. You know, artistry is everywhere. And, you know, some people look at art as this thing, like you hang on the wall and everyone stands around and looks at. I see artistry in everything. I see artistry in an electrician who perfectly bends his conduit so they're exactly 90 degrees and who does his job in a perfectionist way that he's proud of. That's artistry.
Joe, are you an artist?
I am definitely an artist.
What's your canvas?
My canvas is inside of a keg or inside of a beer bottle. When I'm designing beers, I start with a vision of what I want something to look like and work my way backwards from there, trying to create it, trying to figure out how to make that happen. And then you start making it.
What are the basic types of beer?
Beer is fermented grain. Fermented fruit is called wine. Fermented grain or any starchy material is beer, really. I mean, they've been making beer for millenniums, and beers essentially can be defined as an alcoholic beverage that was made with fermented starches. Beer itself can be divided into two major categories, of course, with a big gray area in between them, but those categories are ales and lagers. Ales are also known as top fermented beers. They are brewed at a higher temperature, whereas lagers are yeast species that thrive at lower temperatures. So lager beers are fermented cold.
Does Pearl Street make one or the other or both?
Pearl Street makes both.
Let's talk about one of the Pearl Street Brewery's pale ales, the Linalool. How did you develop the flavor profile for that beer?
So there's a guy who also happened to be a horticulturalist and a professor at UW-Madison. He was also a home brewer, and he discovered these wild hops growing, on his land. And as a home brewer, of course, he picked some and made some beer, and discovered they were pretty good, made some pretty good beer. So him and his family, they transplanted the hops, closer to the house, and they started growing them, in rows and cultivating and propagating these hops so they would have more. And once they got a few rows of them, they brought me some of those hops here, and we brewed some beer with them, and lo and behold, they made some really delicious beer. So that beer turned into Linalool. And the reason we chose Linalool as the name is Linalool itself is an aromatic compound that's found in hops. And commercial hops have linalool in them, as do wild hops. Well, these wild hops had almost 2.5 times more linalool than a commercial variety, the highest commercial variety of linalool content. So they were just off the charts in their linalool content. So they named them Northern Discovery hops, and we've been using those hops exclusively in linalool ever since.
So do you have exclusive rights on those hops? Nobody else in the world could use them?
That is correct, yeah. Linalool is the only beer that we brew with those hops anymore because there's not enough of them really to brew anything else.
Let's talk a little bit about Shitty Light. Why the name Shitty Light?
Well, it's kind of a joke. We, as you can imagine, we do a lot of brew fests, which means we set up, we have all of our beers that we're proud of, and we put them before people, and they come and they sample all day. I'm sure you've been to many brew fests. Brewers like me have gone to hundreds of brew fests over the years, and it never fails. At some point in time, somebody comes up and says, "What do you have that's light?" And honestly, it happens all the time. And I have to think to myself, if you like light beer, why are you at a brew fest? So what do we have that's light? I always said, sorry, we don't make shitty light beer. Then I would point over to one of my brewer buddies, across the park and say, but that guy, I think he does, And so they would go over to him and ask for something light, and he would laugh, and he would send them over to some other brewer, because it was just kind of a joke. But now I can say, yep, we've got shitty light beer. And actually, the reaction that we get with it is really positive. Shitty light beer really kind of fills a void of people that do want light beer, and they find themselves at a tap room, whether or not they wanted to be there. Perhaps they were there because they came with a group of people that went to a conference, or because there was a reception of some kind, and they don't really drink darker, heavier, or higher alcohol beers. We brewed that beer basically for them, for those people that find themselves at a tap room.
So how does somebody find Pearl Street Brewery, Joe?
Pearl Street Brewery is at 1401 St. Andrew Street on La Crosse's north side. Phone number here is 608-784-4832, and our website is pearlstreetbrewery.com.
Experience the Great American Road Trip and take a ride on the Great River Road. Explore the people, places, and culture of the Mississippi River. Visit rivertravelmagazine.com.